The shocking truth just leaked as to why Khaman Maluach is not a Toronto Raptor right now. Why the Toronto Raptors were forced to pass on him in the NBA draft. Of course, first and foremost, the team is very high on Colin Murray-Boyles. Do not get that twisted. But Agent Rich Paul, infamous Agent Rich Paul, had his hand in not allowing Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, in Masai's final days leading the Toronto Raptors organization, didn't allow Khaman Maluach to end up landing with the Toronto Raptors. So we're going to break down what details have now leaked on this situation, what's going on, the truth behind this draft selection, and why everyone being up in arms at the front office for not selecting Maluach. They didn't really have a choice. So we're going to dive into all of that out here in this video. But folks, you guys have been crushing it, hitting the subscribe button. As of recording, we are at 38,350 subscribers, still on that goal to hit 40K. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the daily Toronto Raptors updates. But what's going on with this? Because we saw the NBA draft, and pretty well everyone watching live, myself included, when Maluach was still on the board when the Toronto Raptors were selecting, given his roots with Masai Ujiri, given how much the Toronto Raptors need another young, promising big man, and frankly, just how strong Maluach was out there in college. A lot of people were shocked as to why the Toronto Raptors did not go ahead and select the guy that, out there in college, 7'2", athletic, 8 points per game, 7 rebounds, and statistically out there 1.3 blocks per night, defensively has some mobility. The guy that was linked, was talked about, was mocked to the Toronto Raptors pretty well every single day leading up to the NBA draft. Why on earth did the Toronto Raptors pass on him? And, Murray-Boyles, of course, is great. Elite defender. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a legitimate debate regardless of him being on the board. But now, it looks like the Toronto Raptors did not have a choice, did not have an opportunity to make this happen, no matter how much Masai Ujiri would be interested in making it go down. As Rich Paul, who is currently an infamous agent around the NBA, for forcing things to happen for his clients that might not be in the best interest of the teams because he represents so many people across the NBA. Well, Rich Paul is currently the agent of Khaman Maluach, and there is a video of Rich Paul coming out essentially not letting the Toronto Raptors try. We'll take a look at the video together and we'll break it down as we go here. So I'll pull that up.
If you guys keep 10, I'm going to mention the name and you tell me how much you like him. Khaman Maluach, if I can get him there.
A lot. That'd be my first choice.
Okay, done deal. That's all I need
You
to
think you
hear.
can get there?
I'm going to try my best because you're our first choice. If he gets past Brooklyn, then yeah. But let me make those calls so I can let you do what you need to do.
All right, yeah, call me back when you hear.
I will. Okay.
All
All right, thank you.
So we had that video leak. So what's going on? What's the context? What's happening here? That is Khaman Maluach's agent, Rich Paul, saying to the Phoenix Suns, who were picking 10th, the pick after the Toronto Raptors were selected, that the Phoenix Suns were his preferred destination, was the team that he really wanted to go to. So that was Maluach's preferred destination, and he's going to make it happen. If he gets past 8th from the Brooklyn Nets, he will make sure that he's going to be available at number 10. Who had the number 9 overall pick? That was the Toronto Raptors with Masai and Bobby, who had their eyes on Khaman Maluach for a very long time and had a positional fit, had a point in place to where there was a need for Khaman Maluach out there on this team, and Rich Paul essentially said, hey, we are going to make this happen. We're going to make sure that if the Suns want him, if they want to be in that spot, he will be available. So what's the subtext to this? We are going to make sure that he doesn't get drafted by the Toronto Raptors. That is what Rich Paul is directly saying to whatever top guy in the Phoenix Suns organization that he's talking to there on the phone. That is what he is pushing for. So what does that mean? Like, what are we talking about? The Toronto Raptors somehow, despite having a golden opportunity for this squad, despite having a young, interesting team and everything that's going on, Rich Paul was able to force the team somehow, some way behind the scenes to not select Khaman Maluach there at this point. So, first things first, right? Take the heat off of Bobby Webster. Take the heat off of Masai Ujiri for letting that pick slide. I know there's a lot of people in our comment section that, initially said, oh, he passed on Maluach, that's why Masai was fired. We know that was written off to not be the case right from the beginning. So, that we can write that off just as is. But a lot of people were saying, hey, this is just stupid. New Era Raptors management doesn't make any sense. Colin Murray-Boyles doesn't make any sense. And all that stuff as a basketball player. But no, the Raptors didn't have a choice at Khaman Maluach at this point. So Colin Murray-Boyles getting selected is still a very solid, viable option. I wouldn't be surprised if there was legitimate debates, even at the beginning, of him being on the board. Of course, Murray-Boyles, looking at stats last season, 17 points per game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists for this squad, and of course the three-point shooting is a bit of a concern, but he's a guy that's 6'7", is probably the best defender out there in the NBA draft, and frankly took a solid step up in terms of production, in terms of development last season out there in college. And even though the three-point shot does require some work to play, in the NBA at 6'7", he is going to be probably the best defender in the draft coming in. And I guess him and Maluach there'd be some debates for it, but rebounding, intensity, finishing around the basket, CMB is a guy that I'm very excited having in the team, and it's forced the Toronto Raptors to jump in some different directions. Now, there has been some buzz, there has been some chatter now about who's going to play that backup center spot. Is it going to be Ulrich Shamshay? And maybe this is a signal that Khaman Maluach understood, because even though there's a clear opening at that center position, there might have been some signals behind the scenes that, hey, you'd have to compete with this guy, Ulrich Shamshay, that in the G League has looked very, very solid in terms of his development, in terms of where he can get to. There might be some internal competition for that backup center spot, which is something that Rich Paul doesn't seem that excited by it. Now, the Suns just traded for Mark Williams, and they already have Nick Richards on the team, so I don't think they projected that this Mark Williams trade was going to happen before this deal ended up going down, before he forced his way to the Phoenix Suns. So, Rich Paul's got to get a little bit more locked in out there on that front, but that could be some signaling. I'm seeing some people talk about some discourse out there in terms of this selection, in terms of stuff that's popping off there along those lines. And also, we have Ujiri, who we drafted. I have a video coming out on him very, very soon, but maybe there's another option that the Toronto Raptors are interested at that center spot. And I hate to do this because I know how frustrated people get by yapping about this guy, but Ben Simmons has been linked to the Toronto Raptors here now at this point, leading into free agency. And I broke down on my video how I believe that Ben Simmons could be a very, very viable spot for this Toronto Raptors team at that center position, just solely off how the Raptors are looking to be extremely switchable, looking to have high IQ basketball players that pass really well, that make some good decisions and all that type of stuff. Even though Ben Simmons can't shoot, he deals with some injuries. Don't get me wrong. If he was brought in, the only way that's acceptable is if that's on a league minimum contract or something around that range. Ben Simmons is 6'10". He's a solid defender, and he's played that role for the LA Clippers pretty well over the past season and the Brooklyn Nets. So I wouldn't be surprised, whether it's Ben Simmons or not, if the Toronto Raptors have an option already in place for the backup center spot. And Rich Paul, basically, he is also the agent for Ben Simmons. So he'd be a guy that would be in the know if the Toronto Raptors are going to be in the mix for Ben Simmons. So that is something you have to take into account. Maybe it's a master plan by Rich Paul to make all this stuff happen. We'll see how things shake out here now at this point, but let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. What do you think is going to happen with the center position for the Raptors team going forward? I'd love to hear your comments down below. Anyways, I'm signing out.